दोस्तों गुड मॉर्निंग। मैं हूं आपका दोस्त मदन सिंह एंड आई एम गोइंग टू टॉक टू यू अबाउट समथिंग वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। मैं आपके साथ बात करने वाला हूं इंडिया चाइना रिलेशंस। एंड एक बात तो सामने आ गई है कि चाइना किसी न किसी तरीके से वांट टू डोमिनेट इंडिया, और ये बात भी सामने आ गई है कि इंडिया चाइना से घबराता है। And it's not something which has come so suddenly. Let's have a look at history. Now, history shows us that India, under the British Raj, was dominating China. Dominating, that's the word. And the Chinese couldn't do a damn thing. Right from 1842, when the first Opium War took place, and the East India Company was drafted to fight the Chinese and beat the hell out of them. And then also again 1856, I think, the second battle, Opium War, where again the Chinese were defeated. And then came the 1900 Boxer Rebellion, where the Sikh troops of the British Indian Army played hell into the Chinese. And then the British held all the aces in their hands, and the aces were put into practice when they had the Shimla Conference in 1913, if I remember correctly, where the representatives of Tibet and China had come to Shimla, and an agreement was hammered out. What was that agreement? Agreement was that the British would be the paramount power as far as Tibet was concerned, and Tibet would be a buffer between India and China. And gentlemen, Tibet एक buffer रहा है for 2000 years between India and China. 2000 years, Tibet has been a buffer between India and China. But in 47, when India became free, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru unfortunately had very little comprehension of what is global politics and what is strategic dominance. उसको पता ही नहीं था ये बात word. I wonder if he knew about these words, because he had been brought up on a diet of imperialism, कि आजकल imperialism, and he was talking of imperialism. Imperialism went dead in 1945 when Hitler lost the war, and the British also won what is called a Pyrrhic victory. That was the end of imperialism, where the French and the British empires collapsed. But Nehru was living in that age, and he thought China was his friend. और इतनी बड़ी गलती एक आदमी कैसे कर सकता है is beats my imagination. India had a lot of rights in Tibet, and India withdrew them, and then came that fateful invasion of Tibet by China. Before that, India had been one of the first countries in the world to recognize the People's Republic of China in Beijing. ये बहुत बेवकूफ़ी थी. And India was championing China's cause for the United Nations. ये मुझे बात समझ में नहीं आई even now, because this position in the Security Council was offered to India by the Secretary of State of America, and India was to be made a member of the Security Council. And what Panditji, our famous Prime Minister, said, he said, we cannot become a member of the Security Council at the expense of China. Now, I mean, you can laugh it off now, but that is what really happened. And then it was a downhill slide. Even when China attacked India in 1962, there are reports available wherein the Indian delegation led by Vijay Lakshmi Pandit in the UN General Assembly said that we still support China's entry into not only to the UN but into the Security Council. When she was asked that China has attacked India, she said that's a different issue. So you can just imagine, gentlemen, what was happening in the top echelons of the Indian government, particularly the one headed by Nehru. Nehru was sleeping also again, and I think intelligence reports had come from America that China is going to attack Tibet, and they did that in 49. In a short campaign, I think the Tibetan army, which was armed with muskets and swords, were defeated, and of course the Dalai Lama was captured. It was a very sad occurrence all the time, and the Indian cabinet, I think people talk a lot about Sardar Patel, and he would have been Prime Minister, ye karte, wo karte, anything, he did nothing. He was deputy Prime Minister, he's not a small man, And there are no records of any cabinet meeting जिसमें उन्होंने बैठ के ये बोला हो अरे भाई we should intervene in China. He didn't say. He wrote one letter of post to Nehru which has got no relevance. He didn't raise up these issues in cabinet meetings or personal meetings with Nehru at all. Net result was Tibet was occupied by China, and Nehru allowed it to happen. That was his biggest blunder, because the gain of almost 150 years of the British Raj were thrown away within 24 hours by Nehru. And now, of course, the Congress party keeps on talking, harping a lot, Nehru the Great and all that. I mean, I think he was neither great, he was nothing, and he led India to doom. And then he was showing maps which showed that AksI CHIN is part of India. India was making those British maps all the time. And it didn't strike Nehru that making a map doesn't mean you are owning that territory. आप जाके वहाँ physical presence लगाइए, put your soldiers there, put your administration there. He didn't do anything. And finally, after a couple of years, in I think mid-50s, he came to know that China has occupied the entire AksI CHIN, which is an area of about 35,000 square miles. You can just imagine कितना बड़ा area उन्होंने ले लिया. So from that time, India has been claiming that area, but we never had any control over that area. We didn't have any presence there. It was like a no man's land, and Chinese took over. India came to know only about it when I think there was, in 59, there was an ambush of an Indian patrol, police patrol, and I think about 12 policemen died. It's a very sad occurrence. But then the harsh reality came up to Nehru that he's miscalculated with China. He was the man who introduced China to the Bandung Conference in 1955. He was the man who was all the time going around propagating that China should be given legitimacy, should be given member of the UN. And he was talking all nonsense, actually, if you look at it now. And even yet, people swear that he was a very great man or something like that, So that problem has now ballooned into a very big way, because none of the Indian governments at that stage had any strength even to negotiate with China for a border settlement. I'm aware that once Chow and Lai came to Delhi in I think 61, and he was very keen for a border settlement. I think Mao Zedong had sent him to make the border settlement. Why the Chinese wanted a border settlement at that point? They were scared of the American 7th Fleet, which was guarding Formosa. And उन्होंने सोचा हो सकता है कि चंका शेख फिर से हमारे ऊपर हमला कर दे. जनरल चंका शेख जो था, he was the de facto dictator of China for nearly 25 years. And he had been thrown away in 49 और ये भाग गया था वहाँ फॉर्मोसा में. So gentlemen, ये background बतानी आपको बहुत ज़रूरी थी. That the Chinese were keen for a border settlement in 61, mind you. और उन्होंने क्या proposal रखा था, मैं ये भी बता देता हूँ आपको. Proposal was that India will hand over AksI CHIN to China, recognize it, and China will recognize the McMahon line in the east. अब ये McMahon line एक line है which was named after Henry McMahon, who was once the chief secretary of the Indian government and British Indian government, and he was the man who negotiated with China in 1913. China agreed to accept the McMahon line as far as the east is concerned, because they had accepted the same line with Burma. Chinese accepted the McMahon line as a border with Burma. But Nehru, in his wisdom, consulted his other party colleagues, Undene Govind, Vallabh Pant, so many other people were there, and they all said, no, we should not accept it. I'm aware that General Thimayya, who was the army chief at that time, was in favor of this agreement, because he knew that India will not be able to match China. When Nehru turned down that proposal, I think Chow and Lai, who had spent nearly a week in Delhi talking to various leaders of the government and the Congress party, went back empty-handed. And he reported to Mao. Mao, I believe, then in 62 called a meeting of the Supreme Organization of the Communist Party in the Central Committee, and told them that Nehru is not agreeing and is showing that he's a belligerent man, and he has to be taught a lesson. And that sowed the seeds of the 1962 battle with China. The Indian army was caught with its pants down. We lost 3,000 men killed, 3,000 taken POW. But this war also could have been turned into a victory if Nehru had the guts. And that is a sad part. This is a man who was leading India. At that time, I think, I'm aware that Air Marshal Engineer, who was the chief of the air staff, had suggested that we could use the air force in the battle with China. And that should what have been done. The Chinese would have been beaten back because they had no air force, and we had a very fine air force. We had hunters, we had nets, we had the Mishtier, and then we had the Canberra bombers. And Chinese would have been pushed back. They had only 80,000 troops for the battle, and India was facing them 15,000. But उसमें थोड़ी guts चाहिए थी. You needed some time, do something. Come on, let's do it, fight. But that character was not there in Nehru, and he just threw in the towel. When China declared a unilateral ceasefire, he said with folded hand, "Thank you, sir, thank you. I'm very happy that this ceasefire has been imposed on me." Then he was asking for weapons from America. There's a letter which he wrote to John Kennedy asking for weapons. He forgot all about his non-alignment, which he was strutting around the stage, that I'm a great third world leader, and his prestige was cut down. He became zero. Anyway, gentlemen, this is the background of that thing, and for the next 60 years after that, the relations have been frozen at that time. In between, the Chinese were building up their nation. So there was no problem on the border. And India thought, border chowra, everything is fine. But then China, under President Xi, is now a different kettle of fish. They are no longer content in being an Asian power. They want to be a global power. And global power बनने के लिए they have once more to cut India to size. And let us be very frank, one thing I'll tell you. As far as Pakistan is concerned, it's no big deal for India at all. Pakistan is facing a great strategic crisis. It's facing Afghanistan, Taliban on one side, India on the other. Pakistan is sandwiched. And Pakistan is really not the danger at all. The danger is China. And now the Chinese have done something else. They've claimed a lot of areas of India as part of China. To the original claims, they have added Arunachal Pradesh, which was earlier known as NEFA, the Northeast Frontier Agency during the days of the Raj. They have added it as part of China, and they are going about it with belligerence. ये बात सोचिए, they are going about it with belligerence. अब एक Indian traveller who had been given a valid visa to China, a transit visa, was passing through Shanghai, and she was from Arunachal Pradesh. She was detained for 18 hours there and was brainwashed that Arunachal Pradesh is a part of China and you should have a Chinese passport. This is a very, very sad occurrence, gentlemen, very, very sad occurrence, and it shows the importance of Indian power. China डरता ही नहीं India से, while India is very scared of China. So, there is a book written by Alistair MacLean, Fear is the Key. I think that is what is dominating the Indian political leadership. And it has dominated the Indian political leadership right from the time of Nehru. And even Modi is following the same procedure. Modi thought that he'll be able to placate China with trade, and he will be having a meeting with Mao, the President Xi, every second year. They will be meeting and discussing, and it will be all fine. India will continue its strategic independence, or whatever the Indians call it. But all that has gone for a bunt. Modi is left high and dry. He doesn't know what to do. He did something very stupid. Once Donald Trump came to power, he thought he's the equivalent of Donald Trump, and he began to do so many things which antagonized Donald Trump. And one of these was the attack during Operation Sindoor, that didn't do very well for the Indians. I'll say it went in two phases. In the first phase, we were very badly off, lost about 7 aircraft. The second phase, when the army went into action with the rockets and the SAM-4s and the missiles, the results were better. But India claimed that they brought the ceasefire at the request of Pakistan, and Pakistan says it was Donald Trump who brought about the ceasefire. No, there's a dichotomy. If Pakistan says Donald Trump brought the ceasefire, well, ceasefire was brought about by Donald Trump, and Modi should have accepted it. But in accepting it, he's been talking all nonsense, and net result is antagonized the Americans. And then he thought he's a great gun, and he went for the Shanghai SCO meeting in Shanghai. He thought he'll be pressurizing the Americans, and the Americans don't get pressurized that easily. And Chinese knew he would come. They were like an emperor there, the courtier Modi coming there. A lot of host photo sessions, by the press, showing Modi, Putin, and Yi like they were three allies. All that has gone for a bun. The Chinese giving all the weapons, everything to Pakistan. In fact, I think one of the radars which they gave was very good. And the Pakistanis put up a reasonable show, that's all I'll say. Luckily, it was just a skirmish. War lasted only 4 days. Gentlemen, ये एक बात याद रखिए कि चाइना को इंडिया ट्रस्ट नहीं कर सकता. You cannot trust China. And a lot of these mistakes, we keep blaming on China, but we are forgetting कि इंडिया ने भी बहुत सारी गलतियां की हैं. So you must look into the mirror, and only the mirror will tell you how you look. And that point we must bear in mind. We are way behind China technologically. We are way behind China in per capita income. China's per capita income, I don't talk of the gross GDP at all, I talk of the per capita income is about 5 times of that of an average Indian. Their economy is also very, very big. It's the second biggest economy in the world. And India is where it is. Our aviation industry is zero. Comparatively, China has produced a 6th generation fighter. The prototype is on, and India's 5th generation fighter is likely to fly in 2036. And if they are saying 2036, I'm very sure it will be 2046. Because Indian technology or Indian genius is not the same as the Chinese. Chinese carried out what is called a quantum jump in development, and now they are on top, even the Americans. Donald Trump is deferential to them, while at the same time he's treating Modi with disdain. I don't have to list out the reasons here and the incidents. आप जानते हैं, इंटरनेट पे आपने सब देखा है कि डोनाल्ड ट्रंप किस तरीके से मोदी जी को ट्रीट करते हैं. एंड मोदी जी चुप रहते रहे, ही डजंट आंसर एनीथिंग. और ऑन टॉप ऑफ इट उन्होंने ट्रंप से मिलना ही बंद कर दिया. जहाँ भी ट्रंप आते हैं, ही डजंट गो देयर. और जो ग्रेट मैन होता है, जो डरपोक नहीं, डरता नहीं है, ही गोज एंड मीट्स फेस टू फेस और अपनी बात कहता है. ये नहीं कहते, ही सिटिंग क्वाइटली हियर. सो जेंटलमैन, ये प्रॉब्लम ये है कि चाइना इंडिया का एक बहुत बड़ा डेंजर है. दिस इज व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू टेल यू. पाकिस्तान इज ए स्मॉल डेंजर. बांग्लादेश इज नो डेंजर, इट कैन बी स्नफ्ड आउट इन 48 आवर्स. पर वहाँ भी इंडिया ने बहुत सी गलतियाँ की हैं अंडर मोदी, and there should have been action, intervention. Rajiv Gandhi, people claim him, he was the man who took the decision to intervene in Sri Lanka. He did it. When General Harbakht Singh was made the commander of the IPKF force, and they went and captured Jaffna. All that is now down the hill. Modi ji didn't do a thing in Bangladesh. And Indian intelligence under Modi is big zero. They didn't know what was happening in Bangladesh, they didn't know what was happening in Nepal. And they don't even know what's happening in China. And that's a fact. So India is concentrating everywhere on the wrong sides. They thought they're the equal of China and equal of America. And their policy, entire policy of the Indians was that we'll get American backing and face China. अरे ऐसी पॉलिसी से काम नहीं चलता. American backing आ नहीं रही. America itself accommodation चाह रहा with China. Now President Xi is going next year to United States. अभी डोनाल्ड ट्रंप ने एक मीटिंग की है इन साउथ कोरिया विद प्रेसिडेंट जी, एंड ही हैज़ टॉक्ड ऑफ द G2. That means he's thinking of a world in which China and the USA will be together and dominate the world. And the Americans are playing a waiting game because वो भी जानते हैं कि China is not going to spare them, but at the same time they are deferential to China because they have a trade deficit of $400 billion with China. तो ये कहाँ जाएंगे अगर वो टैरिफ वगैरह लगा देंगे. बट इंडिया के साथ दे हैव नो कंपंक्शन, दे हैव पुट 50% टैरिफ्स, ये वो, एंड डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प पुल पटांग बात करते रहते हैं. आई मीन दैट्स वेरी सैड अकरेंस, बट ही इज डूइंग ऑल दैट सॉर्ट ऑफ थिंग. नाउ जेंटलमैन, चाइना के साथ क्या कर रहे हैं, दैट्स द पॉइंट. व्हाट आर वी गोइंग टू डू विद चाइना? एंड नाउ वी नीड अ लीडर हु इज रेवोल्यूशनरी, यू कैन थिंक अबाउट इट. और आपको देखना पड़ेगा कि व्हाट हाउ हिस्ट्री हैज मूव फॉरवर्ड. एक टाइम था जब रशिया और चाइना वर एनिमीज. उनके बॉर्डर क्लैशेज भी हुए बिटवीन 60 एंड 69. टेंस ऑफ चाइनीज सोल्जर्स डाइड, रशियंस ऑल्सो डाइड, but now there is peace between them. They are allies, they are very strong allies. And what is happening is that the borders problem has been settled. Though China still feels they have been wronged, and a lot of areas, particularly around Vladivostok and those areas, they are originally Chinese. But China has given up those claims, I think, for the time being, and they have demarcated the border and made an alliance with Russia. America is scared. As far as India is concerned, we need a leader who can decide. See, let's be very frank. The only way forward with China is first to have a border settlement, and that settlement cannot be on any other terms except the Chinese terms. आपने 61 का जो आपको प्रपोजल मिला था वो डिफेंड कर दिया by own stupidity. And I believe when Deng was the chief of the Communist Party, 81, I think the same proposal came again. I think I was going through a statement by Nirupama, the ex-foreign secretary, and she had said that we missed that second opportunity also, because same proposal was brought to Delhi during the time of Indira Gandhi and it was turned down. Why should it be turned down? Because उन दिनों में India and China were on a par, their economies were on a par. But India didn't know, there was no foresight that India will lag behind so much China. And now we are lagging behind China. So that being the case, आप क्या करेंगे? Can you keep fighting with China and ultimately there may be another border configuration or something, and China has already encircled India? I mean, who is India's friend here? Nepal, which was your ancient friend, the ancient Hindu kingdom, has put its eggs in the Chinese basket. Burma is close to China, and now Bangladesh is your biggest enemy. Pakistan has remained an enemy forever. Sri Lanka is neither your friend. They have, and it's very stupidly, Madam Gandhi handed over the Kachwetu Island to Sri Lanka. So, I mean, all you just see everywhere, the Indian leadership has been weak. Weak because militarily we are weak. That is the crux of the issue. And we made no weapons ourselves, no R&D, no reverse engineering, nothing. Zero. And that results you import weapons. And by importing weapons, do you think India is going to become a global power? No way. And whatever planes the Indians get from abroad, even like the Rafale, which has come, or the Americans tomorrow give you the F-35, they won't give you the latest version with the latest avionics. They won't give it to you. They will get a grade 2 version. And that the key will be gained with the Americans. The Russian planes, unfortunately, are not on a par with the Americans. And you're going to face China. So how are you going to do it? Either you have a military clash and defeat China, which is impossible. China is militarily very superior. And it will be a defeat for the Indians, because the Indians are very, very vulnerable. We must remember that all of our population centers, right from Jammu, Allahabad, Delhi, and Tezpur, are all close to the border. They're just 100 miles from the border, while the Chinese are thousands of miles away. They're big industrial centers. And India is facing an empty land mass almost like Tibet or Xinjiang, that's all. So what is this way forward? And I will repeat here, which I've said earlier, a settlement of the border on the Chinese terms. You have to negotiate with them. Maybe convince the Chinese that Arunachal Pradesh may be spared. But I do not know. Because the cost of peace can be very terrible, and the mistakes which have been considered, which have been committed by our forefathers like Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru and all these people, even Shastri or Indira Gandhi, all these people, and now Modi is going to haunt India. How is India going to solve this problem? it's not so easy. India is facing multifarious problems here. We have vociferous tendencies in India. The Sikhs are restive. Whatever you say, killing 10,000 Sikhs was not the way forward in 84. And now everybody is saying the Sikhs are creating problem in Canada and England and all that. You have to face them up politically. And the BJP is dividing the country. You cannot ostracize the Muslims, let's be very frank, with the BJP is thinking. The BJP should be a national party, but it's a Hindu party, that's the picture I get. And only one stretch of Indians support the BJP. Another problem with the BJP is got hardly any representation in the non-Hindi areas. And they can't win on their own any state, whether it's Bihar or Maharashtra, where they are in coalition. They cannot win on their own strength like the Congress party used to win during the time of Nehru. Let anybody deny this and prove this to me, that in Maharashtra the BJP can win the elections on their own without taking any cudgels of the Shiv Sena or Ajit Pawar. Can they win? I don't think so. Same thing in Bihar. They won with on the back of Nitish Kumar and Paswan. So it's a very sad state of affairs. But all the same, if Modi is wise, if he is intelligent, if he knows what history is, he will have a border settlement with China. The first thing to have a principle that you're going to have a border settlement with China, and forget about the theory that you will be backed by America against China. It's not going to happen. You've got to fight your battle with China yourself. So dosto, I hope you like my video. Please subscribe, share it with your friends and come back for more. In the meantime, I think I will close now. And again, I will reiterate, India must have a border settlement with China. And it can only be on the Chinese terms. Ek negotiate kariye and see how it is. But let us be very clean. I have to be very frank. India cannot aspire for the leadership of Asia because we are way behind China. And every country, including South Asian countries, are in the Chinese pocket. India has got nothing. Gentlemen, I will close now and I'll say goodbye. Take care and God bless.